Now, through all of the good things happening at Arsenal and so many players, so many positions looking really strong and having some really good performances, it's kind of going to start giving Mikel Arteta a headache. I've mentioned this a couple times in previous videos, but I thought today I want to touch on that very specifically. Those fullback positions, your right back and your left back. A lot of different Arsenal fans have a lot of different opinions on who should be the starters in both positions, and it's really going to start giving Mikel Arteta a headache. But this is a headache that you want him to have. Regardless, how do I think Arteta is going to manage this headache on who plays and who doesn't? And what do I think would be the best partnership as of right now when everyone is fit at the fullback positions? Well, that's what we're talking about today. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Gunner Central here. I hope you're all doing well. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe if you guys haven't already, and let's get into it. So I think the first thing to touch on is that right now we have a lot of players that can play at the fullback. We have guys like Kivior, Zinchenko, Kieran Tierney, Tomiyasu, Ben White, and Timber, and of course Ricardo Calafiori. That is 7 different players that are definitely first team level that can play at those fullback positions. And of course, the one ever presence we've always had in fullback. Last season we had a huge problem at left back, but one thing we've always had an ever presence since signing him from Brighton for £50 million has been Ben White. He's been an ever presence at right back for Arsenal. Last season and even the season before, I'm sure we can all agree, Ben White has consistently been one of our better players. The link up he's had with Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard on that right hand side has made Arsenal very, very dangerous. And last season we saw Martinelli's numbers drop, and that is partly because Martinelli just wasn't performing really well. But a huge another reason of that was that our attack was always so focused on the right hand side because the Ben White, Saka and Odegaard link up was just so good and too good to even ignore in game. So Ben White has always been a consistent player, and in my mind, even going into the season with Calafiori as a new signing, I still didn't question Ben White. Ben White was our starting right back in my mind, no matter what the situation was. If Ben White was fit, he was starting a right back for me. But that's when the wrench kind of got thrown in without me even noticing. When we signed Ricardo Calafiori, I was convinced that Ricardo Calafiori would kind of replace what Kivior did, where he would come in and play kind of as a backup left-sided centre-back if needed, but he would also be able to fill in at left-back. And I suspected Calafiori and Timber would kind of fight for that left-back role, and Calafiori would provide cover for Gabriel so we can rest Gabriel more often. But one thing I didn't notice about Ricardo Calafiori is that he could also perform a role properly at right back. He showed that recently in some of our games that he can play at right back, and while he can play to a fairly high level at right back despite being left-footed, and despite most of us, including me, profiling him as a left-sided player. So here's the thing, going into the season, despite Arsenal recently signing Ricardo Calafiori, the fullback positions in my mind, and I'm sure most people's minds, was kind of set. Right back would be Ben White and left back would be between Calafiori and Timber. Me personally, I preferred Timber at left back, and it seemed like Arteta did as well, with Timber starting most games as a starting left back with Ben White as our starting right back. It kind of seemed like Arteta agreed with that sentiment. But the wrench got thrown in when Ben White had an injury. And well, then what was Arsenal to do? Well, Arsenal were to just put Timber at right back for now and allow Calafiori to be a starting left back for now. That's what we thought. That's what I thought. I thought the moment that Ben White comes back, it's gonna definitely be Ben White at right back and Timber at left back. I prefer Timber, even right now I prefer him over Calafiori, but I was pretty convinced that that's how it will work. 27-year-old Ben White, 23-year-old Timber, we're good to go. Those are our fullbacks. Since last seen Ben White, who played his last game against Manchester City, even though he was injured, he played a whole half, and to be fair, despite his injury, he did pretty well defensively. Since then, we haven't seen Ben White play. We've had Josh Nichols play at right back against Bolton, but in 2 of our last 3 games against Leicester City and PSG, our fullback pairing has been Calafiori at left back with Timber at right back. Obviously, in our last game against Southampton, Timber didn't play in that game. He was injured, so Partey filled in at right back. But after seeing Timber and Calafiori play as our fullbacks, I'm starting to worry if maybe Ben White is the odd man out now. I just think the way that Timber and Ricardo Calafiori can complement each other. Of course, Timber's 23, Calafiori 22, so if you want youth, you have them there. But the way that they complement each other, both of them are so cool, so calm, and so collected on the ball. Defensively, very responsible, very good, very active defensively. And the way that they complement each other is that when Timber comes into midfield from right back, well, what happens is we still have our back 3, because then Calafiori just falls in as the left-sided centre-back, Gabriel shifts to the middle, Saliba as a right-sided centre-back. So when Timber, when we're on the ball, comes into midfield, well, then we still have a back 3. And here's the beautiful thing, because Calafiori can play centre-back and so can Yuri and Timber when Calafiori is the one inverting, or Yuri and Timber then falls up as a third choice left back. They just complement each other so well. And now, not that Ben White can't do that, but it just seems a lot more natural and it seems more fluid and more easy when Calafiori and Timber are doing it, as opposed to Timber and Ben White. Ben White loves to hog the touchline, which I love about him because his overlapping runs are phenomenal, whereas Yuri and Timber doesn't quite like overlapping runs as much. And also, a lot of people were worried that when Ben White was to go down, would that affect Bukayo Saka's game? Because remember, the huge link-up was Odegaard, Ben White, Bukayo Saka. But now, with no Odegaard, no Ben White, how would Bukayo Saka thrive? Like, he's still a really good player. Of course, he doesn't always need him to perform, but will he thrive on a consistent basis? And thrive he has. This fluid system of Arsenal with no Odegaard has definitely helped, but I really think having Timber and even having Ricardo Calafiori filling at the right back role, well, it's been really beneficial. But I just really am starting to think that Arteta has a little bit of a headache now. How does he play this? Do you stick with the youth of Calafiori and Yuri and Timber, which is right now, I know it's a little bit biased, but right now what I'm more leaning towards? Or do you get back Ben White when he started and allow him to start at right back with Yuri and Timber and Calafiori to fight for that left back role? That's a huge headache that Arteta has, and that is a question that I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, you name it. They're all debating on which is the better option. I really do think Arteta's going to handle it on a per game basis, so what the game would need, if it needs more overlapping runs from Ben White, or if the game just needs more presence down the middle because there is no Odegaard, so maybe you then stick with your Timber and your Calafiori partnership. At the end of the day, it's a huge headache for Arteta, but this is such a cool thing to have because us Arsenal fans, especially in recent times, haven't had this headache where who do we start because they're both really good. We haven't had that headache, and it's really nice to finally have this headache. It's finally a good headache to have from Arsenal, which is a first in a long time. It's really awesome, and I'm excited to see how Arteta attacks this. But let me know in the comments, what partnership would you guys go with? What would be your starting partnership in the fullbacks? And what do you think Arteta will go with? Let me know in the comments below. Please be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you guys haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.